Well, I'm just realizing, like, I have a lot of, like, thoughts that I wrote down, but I didn't, like, put it down as, like, pros and cons. It was just
Oh.
like, this is what I think. Because I'm very polarized with the game.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I just had a really hard time organizing.
It's going to be hard for me to put my thoughts into words a little bit because I feel a little bit like you said, like polarized. Like I feel like there's lots of stuff that I like, but then there's stuff that I'm like, and so I don't really like know where I kind
Yeah,
of
well, like,
land
so
on it.
I'm like, I don't know if it, like, works for your typical organization of, here are the pros and here are the cons. Because it's just like, they're like, like this.
Hi friends, welcome back to Board Game Buzz today. My name is Carly.
And I'm Kim.
And today we're going to be reviewing the 1 to 6 player game Libertalia Winds of Galecrest from Stonemaier Games. So in Winds of Galecrest, you are basically taking on the role of pirates and you are going out exploring, looting islands and areas and trying to basically walk away with the most money.
In gameplay, you are going to have 6 cards in your hand. That will be the exact same as the other players. That will change a little bit as the game goes on because you are going to be playing cards and going out on 3 different voyages.
So before we jump into our kind of thoughts and ratings of this game, I'm actually going to be giving you a really quick overview, very general, of how to play this game, and then we'll jump back here and we'll share our thoughts on Libertalia. All right, so here's a 3-player game setup for Libertalia. In Libertalia, the game is played over 3 rounds, so I'm going to kind of just briefly go through and kind of do an example of what a round looks like in this game. So at the beginning of every round, one player will shuffle up. Everybody gets like a deck of cards. There's 40 cards in the game, and they will basically shuffle up their card and shuffle up their deck and randomly draw out 6 cards. Once they do that, the other players around the table will search their decks for those same exact cards, pull them out, and those will be their starting hands for the game. So going into the first round of the game, everybody has the same exact set of cards that obviously have the same abilities on them. Now over here where it shows the days, those are the amount of days that are happening within each voyage, so basically each round. So this first round, there are 4 days that happen. And on every day during the voyage, players will kind of secretly and simultaneously select a card from their hand. So for example, the black player will select this one, the purple player will select one, and then the green player will select one. They will secretly choose one, turn it upside down, and then once everybody is ready, all cards will be revealed at the same moment. So just to kind of show you an example, we're going to have the green player choose number 8, the black player choose 37, and then the purple player choose 39. So because these cards were chosen, once they're all revealed, then these cards or these characters will actually move to the island up here at the top of the board, where they will be ranked from the lowest number to the highest. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So I'm coming in at a little bit of a closer shot at the top of the board here, so hopefully you can see it a little bit better. But as you can see, I ranked the cards accordingly. If there is a tie, if 2 players flip over the same card, then this reputation track here helps break those ties. So now players will go through and one by one activate any daytime abilities on the cards that are in the island. Again, moving from the lowest to the highest. So all of the cards have certain abilities printed on them. You can kind of tell the moon, those are nighttime abilities, the sun is daytime abilities, and then on this card, this little symbol right here, that's dusk abilities. So players will go through activating any daytime abilities. So for in this example, this card doesn't do anything, this card doesn't do anything, but then this card will go ahead and activate. And so the captain says, advance to the rightmost space in the reputation track, lose 1 for each position gained this way. So this the purple player would be able to move like this, and then they would lose 2 gold for doing that because they advanced 2. Once you've gone through and activated all daytime abilities, now you actually flip around and you start going backwards down this track, activating any dusk abilities that might be on these cards. Now, the cards that are currently in play don't actually have any dusk abilities, so what will happen is because there's no desk ability, like for the captain, nothing will happen, but the purple player will collect this card, and as they collect this card, they actually get first choice for these loot tokens that are on the current day that you are in. So this player will go ahead and select this one. Now all of these loot tokens do something slightly different, and all of their abilities are listed on the bottom of the board. The game also comes with a bunch of different like stacks of tiles that you can use these to actually overlay the ones that are currently listed on the board to kind of change up what they do, which is kind of fun. So yes, so again, all of them are different, but for this current example, the player would select this, and once it's time to activate anchor abilities, which I'll chat about in a second, they will be able to gain 3 coin for collecting this loot token. But because it's not time to actually activate this loot token yet, they'll actually just set it kind of in their personal reserve, and they will wait to activate it when it's time. So I'm going to slide down their cards, their current hand of cards, just so you can kind of see. But once the player has collected their loot token and activated any desk abilities that those loot tokens might have, they also claim their character again. And these characters actually just go right in front of the player. This is like considered your ship. And so these are your current active players that you have played that round. At the end of the voyage, or at the end of the round, again, there's 3 of them, all of your current characters that are in your ship actually get wiped off the board and get tossed into your graveyard. Some cards give you abilities to pull cards back from your graveyard, kind of like resurrecting them in a sense. But for the most part, after you use cards and they end up in your graveyard, they usually stay there for the remainder of the game, and you can't use them again. But because we're still in the first round, this captain will just go right there. So we will now come back up to the top of the ship here, and the black player who played this card gets to go next. Again, they get to activate any dusk abilities if they have any, which this one doesn't. So they don't get to activate any abilities, but they do get to choose what token they want. And so this particular character is going to choose this green map loot token. Again, in the current game, we're playing this map. The abilities are shown right here. So for every set of 2 map tokens, they get to gain 7 coins for that. But again, that only activates when it's time to activate anchor abilities. So in the meantime, the black player will just, again, hold this in reserve beside their player mat. And then the final player, the green player here, again, doesn't have any dusk abilities, so they can't do anything, but they do get to select the last remaining piece of loot. So they will select this brown barrel. And this barrel, when you collect it, it actually does have a dusk ability, which you activate immediately. So the green player will go ahead and gain 1 reputation. And this barrel also does have an anchor ability, so again, that doesn't activate yet, so they'll just hold this in reserve beside them until it's time to activate it. So all of the days will continue like this, with players randomly and secretly choosing a card, flipping over and revealing, placing them on the island, going through and activate day abilities, flipping around on the opposite side and activating dusk abilities. And while you are collecting dusk abilities, you go ahead, select your cards, or grab your cards, activate dusk ability if needed, and then you get to select a loot token. Once you're done going backwards, then over here on the side of the board, you can kind of tell, but it says you actually get to activate night abilities. So all of the cards that are currently in your ship, like for example the purple player, I kind of got that set up, has the captain currently in her ship. If that captain had a night ability, at the end of every day, that night ability would go ahead and activate. So there's definitely a lot of like kind of chaining that can happen in this game. Once you've gone through and completed this though, once you have successfully completed all of the days, that is considered the end of the current voyage or the current round. This is where the anchor abilities come into play. So all of the loot that you've collected that has anchor abilities, you will activate, and also characters that are in your ship will go through and activate any anchor abilities that they have as well. So you'll start the end of the voyage by going through and activating all the anchor abilities. trophies that you currently have collected throughout that round. Then all the money that you've collected during the round, you will actually go ahead and upload into these adorable little personal chests that you get. And so, yeah, so all the money that you collect during the round, you kind of collect it as the round goes on, but then at the end of the round, you go ahead and upload it into these chests because you do gain a lot of money throughout this game usually. So yeah, the chests make things very nice. You will then go ahead and discard, again, all your characters that are currently in your ship. You will discard them, putting them into your graveyard. And then you'll go into the next round where you go ahead and set up the next days. So round 2 would be day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The third round would be all of the days. And then you have a new player randomly select 6 cards. Everybody else grabs the same numbered cards, and you basically start again. So something that is worth mentioning is at the end of the round, you will not play all the cards that are in your hand. So for example, at the end of the first round, if this player has not played, they chose not to play 31 and 19, they played all their other ones, but they still have these cards in their hand, they will actually hold on to these cards and carry them with them into the subsequent rounds. So every card that you don't play, you hang on to, and you get to use them at a future turn. Gameplay will continue like this through the 3 rounds of the game, and then whoever has the most money at the end of the game wins. All right, so kind of coming into our thoughts on this game, I wanted to start off talking about all the things that we enjoyed about Libertalia. So Kim, I'm going to turn the time over to you for a little bit.
First off, just this morning, I was telling Carly, this is not about Libertalia, but it is about it. I got the playmat for expeditions. What do you call those? What are they?
Like the neoprene?
Yeah, the
mat?
neoprene mat. I got the neoprene mat for expeditions, and it's so gorgeous and beautiful. I'm like, this game is now a 10. They're like, it just is. It's now a 10 because it's so gorgeous. And so, like, that makes me think of in terms of, like, I like looking at this game. Like, it's so pretty. The cover is so pretty. And then, like, all of these characters are so creative. And I love their, like, humanoid animal.
Like the anthropomorphic
animals.
Yeah.
Animal humanoids, is that what you call them? They're, like, creative, and they're fun, and they're cute. And this island, like the floating islands in the sky and the ships, like it's just like all really aesthetically pleasing. These acrylic tiles like are really nice.
I really liked how bright this game was. Like I said, I feel like I have a couple issues in regards to production, but for the most part, I do really love it. I love the artwork that's on this main board. I love these little pieces, these little like, I don't know how to describe them, but they're just like nice and thick and
booty tokens.
Yeah, the booty tokens.
They're loot tokens.
Yeah, I feel like for the most part, I really do enjoy the production. So something that I really loved about this game is the puzzle of trying to figure out what your opponents are going to be doing, because that really is kind of like the heart of this game. Is you get your cards and you all, especially at the beginning, know exactly what other people have, and so that puzzle of, okay, I think I know Kim enough. I think, like, this is the obvious thing. Is Kim going to go for it?
Yeah.
And can I do anything to, counteract what she's going to do? Or maybe she's not going to do that. And so that puzzle of trying to get into your opponent's head and trying to figure out ways to work around what you think they're going to do. And then when all those cards are revealed and turns out it's not what you think it's going to be and you end up getting screwed over. It's just a fun, kind of satisfying puzzle for me.
And I agree with that. That was definitely, I think, one of my other biggest pros with this game is, like, puzzling out, like you said, like looking at your cards, trying to figure out the strategy. I do have to often, like, sometimes plan a few turns in advance, but sometimes, like, what I think I've planned is completely thwarted based off of what other people have played. So it's like I have to try to think about that in terms of, like, what I'm doing. Are they thinking the same way, or are they thinking a little different? Or, like, if my guy gets sabered off there. So you also have to, like, I'm thinking about what other players are doing. I'm thinking about how my cards can chain together to get the best reaction. And then I also have to consider what the loot tokens are doing, because, like, based off of how you have to consider the number on the cards and your reputation on the track.
And what loot you could get, and if somebody could get loot that could screw you over. There's
exactly.
lots of,
like,
There's lots of depth, really, I feel like, to the puzzle here.
And I think that for me, like, is the most enjoyable and like what makes the game fun, because there is something that I think the most satisfying moment is when you flip over your cards to see what everyone else has done and you see like how it ends, like plays out. Like that for me is like that moment to see like that Carly and I played this just a little bit ago, and there was a couple times where we played the same card, and it's just like, oh, like, all right, okay, there we
We're
go.
thinking the same thing.
Yeah, let's see what happens. So like, I think for me that is like that's the most satisfying aspect of like that reveal and seeing how it all ends up puzzling out once everyone else has also revealed the way they're thinking. Along with gameplay, another aspect of gameplay that I like is the simultaneous gameplay that happens with this game, because you're all looking at your decks at the same time, and then you're all picking a card and revealing, and then there's a little bit of turn-based like after that when you are resolving like the daytime and the dusk abilities, but it all just happens like in the blink of an eye. So there's not a lot of like downtime between turns that you're waiting to figure out. There's a little bit of waiting in terms of like maybe one player is taking a little bit longer to decide which cards to play. But if you compare that to a general turn-based game, like there's not going to be a ton of downtime.
Something that's interesting about this game is I feel like it changes based on the player count. When you are doing a lower player game or a 2-player game, it's kind of that back and forth of like, you're able to read your opponent better.
Yes.
And you're able to just kind of do that back and forth. It's like, okay, I really think Kim's going to do this, so I'm going to try to do this. But then when you're playing with larger player count, it kind of turns into like a chaotic, like free-for-all in a sense, which is fun. And I could see how some people might not like that chaos, but if you don't mind the chaos, or if you do enjoy chaos, I think you would really like it at that higher player count. For me personally, I like it at the higher player count, probably more so than lower. Not that I don't like it at lower, but like I feel like this is a game that I would want to play out with like the 6 players, because it just makes it super chaotic. You're trying your best to, get what you need. It feels like a pirate game. Like it feels like, you're stabbing people in the back, or people are stabbing you in the back, and it's just like, I know once, like the game we played with I think, did we play?
We had 6.
6? Was it 6 people? Like I can't really quite describe what happened, but basically everybody got screwed over because we all played like, was it the Brute?
The Brute. It was the Brute.
Or something. Yeah. And so like we literally like everybody just like, we all kind of like screwed over everybody else. Not really meaning to. But it was fun. And so it's interesting how it really does change quite a bit. If you take a 2-player game and a 6-player game, they feel almost kind of like 2 different games.
I agree.
Kind of.
This is like a remake of Libertalia, the original Libertalia. I'm really bad, and I don't know who that was from.
It's okay.
But
it's okay. There was a Libertalia game. This is the remake of it.
Yeah, it was the original Libertalia was originally released in 2012, and this is like a revised edition. So there are a few. The gameplay is essentially the same, but there are a few new things about the game. And I had played the original Libertalia.
And I have not played the original. This is my first like introduction to Libertalia.
Yes. So one of the things that at first I might have thought like was a little of a con, but now I think differently, is that in the original game, there are only 30 crew cards. Is that what you call these? Crew cards? And in this game, there are 40. And originally, I felt like a little bit overwhelmed by like, for whatever reason, that 10 additional cards like felt like a lot more. But then as I played it a few more times and I thought about it more, I'm like, no, this is like a good addition because it gives more replayability to the game itself, because you're not going to have the same crew every single time. I think I'm not any good at math, so I don't know what the probability is with like how much the additional 10 cards makes a difference in terms of that. But I feel like it actually does add more depth, add more replayability, more players. It changes up. Your games are going to be different every time. the way the cards combo together, because there are like chain reactions that can happen with the cards. So the way,
And I know this reputation track, that's
yes,
new
that's
to this
also
one
new.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there definitely are differences in between. It's not just like a reskinned. There are differences between this one and then the base Libertalia.
And so that was my other thing with the reputation track that I will add, which at first I was like, again, that was another thing I was like neutral on, like, does the reputation track really make a difference? But as I thought about it more, I'm like, it does add depth to the game, because before in the original, ties were broken based off of a random number, like on your card that was associated with your deck. And like if you had the higher number, then your 20 got to go before Carly's 20.
Yeah.
But the reputation track changes that. But the thing that's interesting, that I guess adds depth, is you have to consider, like, would I rather have higher reputation, or do I want to be lower on the reputation track because I get more doubloons, which is points in this game. So you kind of have to like weigh that out.
I do like this more than just the random number on the side of the cards, because it's open information.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's
that's
ways
true.
for you to kind of like mitigate, like you're able to kind of figure out and kind of guess, okay, I do think Kim might play the same card. So but I am higher up on the reputation. So even if she does play it, I know for a fact that I still will, be above her.
Yep.
So it's just that way of just making a little bit more open knowledge, and it just gives you better ways to kind of guess on where you will actually end up on the island. Okay, so now we're going to chat a little bit about some of the stuff we might not have liked, or stuff that we could potentially, see others not liking in regards to this game. And something that I wanted to talk about, I know when we talk about stuff that we liked, lots that we talked about was the production, or we did, mention we liked a lot about the production. I do have a couple nitpicks in regards to production. I know we played with people who kind of were a little bit harder of seeing, and the numbers on the coins they kind of had issues with. I wish that the numbers would have been slightly darker, or it would have been outlined a little bit darker in regards to the coins, because the 3, I don't know, I feel like especially like if I had issues seeing, or if I was a little bit hard of seeing, it would be kind of hard to like initially, obviously once you know the colors, like, okay, this is a 3. But I can see how I wish they would have been outlined a little bit darker, especially like right there.
Yeah.
Like I can't even tell that that's a 3. I know it's a 3 because of color and because I
Right.
played the game, but if you're introducing this to new players, that might be a little bit of a hiccup at the beginning. Another thing I kind of have an issue with are the sizes of things. So at the bottom of the board, it shows you, what it has, every single token and what it does. I feel like those are slightly too big, and I wish that those would have been made slightly smaller, and then these days slightly bigger, because if you're playing with a full player count, you have a lot of loot tokens that are out here on the board, and they all kind of got jumbled together when we were playing with our large player count. It was hard for me to pull them from the bag and quickly refill the days, because I literally had to spend time organizing them and putting them like this on every single day. And it just looked really jumbled. Like, I wish that these days just would have been made slightly bigger. These down here slightly smaller. I mean, look at all this. Like, there's just a ton of, like, open space and blank space. So, yeah, I just wish that these days would have been a bit bigger. It would make it easier when you're pulling out the tokens and refilling them.
So I mentioned in our pros section of this video that I really like the artwork. I like the humanoid creatures. It makes it kind of fantastical, and
It reminds me of, like, Treasure Island.
yes,
Yeah.
I wrote that down.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
more Treasure Island. But my con in terms of the artwork, especially in terms if I'm comparing, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
My con in terms of the artwork and the just in general, especially if I'm comparing it to the original, is that for me the pirate theme, I had an emotional reaction to saying that, is a little bit lost for me in terms of the artwork. I know they're supposed to be pirates. The game says pirates. We're going to this island and we're looting. but it doesn't have that same like arr, matey, like pirate, like heavy pirate theme that the original Libertalia does have. That pirate theme was lost for me a little bit, at least in terms of like the cards and the board.
I feel like I get the theme in regards to the play because I feel like this is a game where you have to be okay with take that. Like you have to be okay with people stabbing you in the back, you stabbing people in the back. So for me, that kind of feels piratey, because you know you're just kind of like fighting over stuff. You're fighting over the loot. You're trying to screw other people over. So that part feels piratey to me.
Yeah.
But I agree, it probably doesn't feel as piratey as the original. And if like thinking about it, like if the artwork were to be like more grittier,
Yes.
just straight up like pirate, I feel like it would be stronger. I do
Yes.
think it would be stronger. Again, especially
Yes.
when you're comparing it to the original, I can see how that pirate theme could feel a little bit watered down for you.
Yeah. And then like the other aspect is that in the original, you actually have a ship, Matt, which I mean,
Which that's something that, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish like when you are retrieving your people and they go to your ship, I do wish that there was some sort of player board that did look like a ship or
Yes.
do something, because again, you have these little tokens that are like your graveyard tokens. I wish that this would have been a little bigger and just like even like
Yeah.
the start of a ship, and then as you put your people out, it like finishes. I don't know, just something, because yeah, I mean, you bring them back to your ship, but you really don't have a ship you're bringing them back to.
Right.
That's just the place in front of you. That's what the place in front of you is called, is
Yeah.
your ship.
I wish I had a ship to like
Yeah.
store my loot and to be able to put my people in. Like island is labeled on the board, and like there are a lot of cards that refer to island or ship, so you have to like distinguish. And for whatever reason, not having my like actual ship, I'm just like, which one is it referring to? Even though,
And especially how the original one came with the ship.
yeah, came
you
with
know?
the ship board.
Yeah.
So that was also another thing that like was lost for me a little bit.
I kind of just mentioned this, but with this game, you do have to kind of be aware and you have to be okay with take that. Like I said, this is definitely a game where you are going to be screwing people over and people are going to be screwing over, and there's going to be times where you have a really great plan and you know exactly what you want to do, and then literally somebody stabs you in the back and screws up your entire plan, and you walk away with nothing. And so you have to be okay with that, and you have to be aware that that does occur a lot in this game. And this game, just the way it's set up, I mean, you're going to be screwing people over even if you don't want to. So if that's not a way that you play games, or if that's something you really don't like in games, definitely don't play this game. I feel like I can very strongly say that in regards to, if you don't like take that, if you don't like, you know, screwing other people over, this probably isn't the game for you.
Yeah.
Because that definitely occurs a lot in this game.
I agree with what Carly just talked about in terms of, if you don't like backstabbing kind of games, you probably aren't going to...
Don't want this.
You probably aren't going to like this game. That was actually something that I, when trying to like come up with solidify my overall thoughts and feelings about this game, that I was feeling a little bit like polarized about, because it's like on one hand this, but then on the other hand this. And that is the overall enjoyment and pleasure of the game really is going to depend on the crowd that you are playing with.
Yes.
Yes. This is not a game I'm going to pull out when I know I'm having guests over that I'm not very familiar with. And that people, like if I'm having game night and I know people are bringing friends that I don't know or whatnot, I'm not going to pull this game out, because I just don't know how, if I'm not going to backstab a complete stranger, and you just don't know how they're going to react. So So for me, that's a con. I really like that it plays up to 6 players, because that is when you have a larger game night, I want to have more games that I can pull out and have a larger player count for. But then on the other hand, because there's it can get a little vicious and cutthroat, and especially if you have people who really feed into that, and they might decide to particularly target someone who is an easy target, who doesn't respond well to that, it could potentially create a not so enjoyable, fun gameplay environment. But on the other hand, so I think like this could be a really great game to play with people that you are close with, and like playing like you have like, you know, you're like your relationship's safe and you're fine and you can laugh about
and you
it.
can just screw each other over.
Yeah, and you can like get, especially I think if you're like getting into the theme of piracy, like I feel like this game is a little bit fun to like kind of really get into character and role play with.
Yes.
So like you're like, yeah, going into it, I'm a pirate and I'm gonna loot and I'm gonna plunder and I'm gonna stab you in the back, Carly.
Do everything I can to get the most money. Yeah.
So like there's a little bit of that kind of like it's only gonna be for a certain kind of crowd of people. My final thing that I would, I guess, nitpick on about this game, I mentioned before that I actually really like that there are an additional 10 cards that we have in this version of the game versus the original. However, I did feel a little bit overwhelmed by it at first. And one thing that I wish this game had, like, in terms of the cards, is I wish there was, like, a deck that didn't belong to anyone and was just a random deck that you could use to draw which characters are going to be for that hand. That way, our player decks can remain in
order.
Numerical order, and that one deck can always just be shuffled, and you can use that deck to determine which cards to play. Because, and like I said, this is a little nitpicky, but I mean, it is like, for whatever reason, it's a little bit like hard sometimes to, and I mean, you can choose to do that, I guess, like just make it a house rule that always one player is the one that shuffles their deck.
And I actually think it says that in the rule book, is you can just have one player, you know, pick out everything.
That I just wish there was, so that everyone could just have theirs numbered, so I didn't have to use the brain power to like if my deck got shuffled for voyage 1 and then hers got shuffled for voyage 2 to then have to like search through the deck. So I would just since it doesn't have that random deck for everyone, I would just make that house rule of you just pick one player to shuffle or like one color to always be the shuffled deck, and whoever's that color is the one that does the drawing for which to I'm stumbling over my words to determine which numbers are being played for that voyage.
I don't know a better way to do it, because I do like, you know, having the different cards for every round, but it is so annoying to like at the beginning of every voyage stop gameplay and just try to find all the cards that you need for the next voyage. Mm-hmm. Something about it like disconnects a little bit, or that like almost like stops the game at the beginning of every voyage. So the last thing that I kind of wanted to talk about is, because there are so many cards in the deck, which it's nice to have, you know, all the cards, all the different stuff you can do. Sometimes there are times where the cards that are randomly selected for that voyage don't mesh super well together, or you can't do exactly what you need to do, which was frustrating for me. There were a handful of times where I got my cards, I looked through them, I looked at all their abilities, and I was like, either I'm like stupid and I don't know this game very well, or I can't figure out a way to get what I want with these cards. And so that was kind of frustrating for me, as there was definitely times where, because it is random, because there are a lot of different abilities, you do kind of have those times sometimes in this game where the cards, you know what you want to do, but your cards won't let you do it. Yeah. And that is a little bit frustrating sometimes for me.
Some of the cards do have some really good like chaining that can happen with them.
Yeah, and sometimes you can chain really good.
Yeah, and then some other times you have to like maybe put one of those cards to the side and not use it that round, and hold out hope that like the next 6 cards that are drawn will like
chain better
with that one. So I can see how that is like a little frustrating, and could be frustrating for other players.
Okay, so coming into our final thoughts and ratings here, I will go ahead and I'll start. So I really did enjoy a lot about Libertalia. I think the thing that I liked the most was the puzzle in regards to trying to figure out your opponents, trying to figure out, because again, there's lots of different puzzles going on. You're trying to figure out your opponents, you're trying to figure out ways to get your cards to to chain together, and also trying to figure out ways to get the certain loot that you want and abilities that you want. So I did like all of that. There were a handful of stuff that did bring it down for me. There's a lot of take that in this game. You have to be okay with screwing over your friends and having your friends screw you over. And yeah, I think just a lot. I don't know. I feel very polarized in regards to my rating in this. I feel there's lots of stuff that I liked, stuff that I wasn't as hot on personally. No. No, not one sucker. Because of that, I feel kind of torn in between my numbers. But I think I am going to come in at a 7.5 with this game because I really did like the puzzle. And I liked trying to figure out ways to chain your cards together to get the most money. I really did enjoy that.
There are some board games that I play where I have like an immediate reaction, immediate thoughts.
Yeah, you're like
immediate, like I know exactly like what the pros are that I liked about the game and what the cons. And this one, I kept going back and forth on things, and it took me a lot of like, yeah. Ultimately, I am coming in at a 6.5 for this game because I mentioned as one of my cons, like the overall enjoyment and fun of the game is really going to weigh heavily on your crowd of people. And
yeah,
this isn't a game that I feel safe, I guess, to be able to pull out for a game night where I'm hosting people that I don't know that well, or that I love to learn new board games. I love board games for the aspect of being able to share them with others and enjoy the company of others and like go on like a journey together, I guess, through games. But this isn't one that I feel like I could just pull out with like any group of people and teach them and like know that we're gonna have like a good time. The rating of my game the rating of this game could be higher for me, like if I'm playing with someone like Carly and another group of friends that I'm close with, or like my siblings, and we know we're just gonna like laugh at each other and we're gonna get into it and it's gonna be like fun in that way. But because I know that fun and enjoyment quality factor might not always be there, that's why ultimately it comes in at a 6.5 for me.
I think you totally hit exactly what kind of my feelings in this game is. This game is really going to depend. Your enjoyment of this game is going to depend upon the group around the table.
Yes.
100%. And so I feel like that's why I'm kind of feel polarized, is because if you do play with a group that, yeah, is totally fine with take that, totally fine with just screwing over people and just having fun and having a good time, you will have a great time with this game.
Yeah.
But if you have a group of people that don't like that and will get frustrated when their plans constantly get changed or screwed over, you will have a miserable time with this game.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you, is really, and I feel like that's kind of where my thoughts are with this game, is if you have a group of people that, you know, you're having fun with, I feel like it is a great game. But then if you have, again, the flip side, a group that won't like all the stuff kind of in this game, then you won't have a good time. So I think when you are thinking about if this game is a good game for your collection, if you're thinking about, you know, pulling this out on the table, you really just have to keep in mind the people that you normally play with, or the people that will be around the table that night. And if this game would suit them and suit their needs. So those were our thoughts and ratings on Libertalia Winds of Galecrest. Huge shout out to Stonemaier Games for sending us this copy to review. And if you enjoyed this video and you haven't yet subscribed, it would mean so much to us if you could do that. It really helps support us in everything that we're doing on the channel.
Hit that like button.
Hit that like button. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Did I say that right?
Libertalia
Wins it. Is it Galecrest or
Galecrest.
Galecrest?
I need to read out loud, sorry.
It's okay. I like us because we both think out loud and we read out loud and we do everything out loud.
And priority over looting, or do you want to end or start your next day with more money?
Yeah.
1 moment.
Yep.